I still remember the smell of that lawyer's office. Old leather chairs, the faint scent of coffee that had been reheated too many times, and a silence that felt thick enough to choke on. I was 28, dressed in the same black blazer I'd worn to every job interview I never got, sitting 2 seats away from my parents, who wouldn't even look at me. The lawyer cleared his throat and started reading. His voice was calm, practiced, emotionless. When he reached my name, my heart was beating so hard I could feel it in my ears. And then he said it, $5. That was it. $5. For a second, I thought he was joking. My mother actually smirked. My father didn't even blink. The lawyer continued reading as if he hadn't just ripped the air out of my lungs. My brother got the house. My sister got the stocks. I got the equivalent of a cheap cup of coffee. Everyone in the room avoided eye contact. My brother gave me that smug look he'd been perfecting since we were kids. My sister looked uncomfortable but didn't say a word. I wanted to speak, but my throat locked. What could I even say? That I was hurt? That I'd given up my early 20s to help them with Dad's failing store while my siblings chased their careers? That every time they called, I came running and now I was worth a $5 bill to them? The lawyer finished, closed the folder, and gave that polite smile lawyers give when they're sorry, but not really. I picked up my bag, nodded stiffly, and walked out. Not a single person followed me. Outside, it was raining. Of course it was. It always rains when your life falls apart, or maybe you just notice the rain more. I stood there on the sidewalk, staring at the gray sky, and laughed. A broken, hollow kind of laugh. That's when I decided something. If they thought I was worth $5, I was going to make myself worth $5 million, and they'd know it. The first few months were hell. I moved into a tiny studio apartment with paint peeling off the walls. My savings were gone after paying off debts my father had left in my name, another one of his gifts. I worked double shifts as a waitress, slept 5 hours a night, and lived off instant noodles. Every time I wanted to quit, I pulled that $5 bill from my wallet and stared at it. I had framed it behind clear tape, like a badge of humiliation. But there's a strange thing about pain. It either breaks you or builds you. In my case, it lit something inside me I didn't even know existed. I started looking for something, anything, that could become mine. I had always loved baking, ever since I was a kid helping Mom in the kitchen before she decided I wasn't the responsible one. So one night, after a 10-hour shift, I took the last of my paycheck, bought flour, sugar, and a used stand mixer off Facebook Marketplace. I baked all night. Cookies, cupcakes, little chocolate tarts. My apartment smelled like hope. The next morning, I packed everything into old shoeboxes and went door to door to nearby offices. Homemade desserts, I said. $5 each. Some people smiled. Some ignored me, but a few bought them. I made $85 that first day. $85 isn't much, but it was mine. I did it again the next day, and the next. By the third week, I had regular customers. By the second month, people started ordering for birthdays and events. I remember the first time someone ordered 100 cupcakes for a corporate event. I baked for 12 straight hours, fell asleep on the counter, and woke up with frosting in my hair. It was exhausting. It was beautiful. A few months later, a local cafe owner tasted my brownies and asked if I'd like to supply desserts for her shop. I said yes before she finished the sentence. That one deal doubled my income overnight. Suddenly, I wasn't just surviving, I was building something. Every night, I'd lie in bed and whisper, $5. It wasn't anger anymore. It was fuel. Then, a year later, the cafe owner told me the space next door was for rent. A small storefront, tiny but bright, with a big front window. Rent was high. My savings weren't enough. I hesitated for days, then went to the bank with trembling hands. The loan officer smiled politely when I said I wanted to open a bakery. It's a competitive market, he warned. I smiled back. So is being underestimated. They gave me the smallest loan possible, just enough to cover first month's rent and equipment. I called it 5, all caps. No one understood the name except me. Opening day, I sold out in 3 hours. Not because I was famous or special, because I hustled. I posted everywhere, handed out flyers, offered free samples. I stood outside in the rain, smiling at strangers, saying, "Try one, it'll make your day better." And it worked. The first time I saw a customer taking photos of my cupcakes for Instagram, I cried in the back room. Not because of the photo, but because for the first time in my life, I felt like someone was choosing me. Word spread fast. Within 6 months, 5 became a local favorite. A small feature in a city food blog led to a flood of orders. I hired 2 part-timers, then 4. I was still living small, still frugal, but something inside me shifted. I wasn't that girl sitting in the lawyer's office anymore. Then, 2 years after opening, a miracle happened, or maybe it was karma. A well-known lifestyle influencer came to town and visited my bakery after a fan recommended it. She posted a short video, just her eating one of my cupcakes and saying, "This place is happiness in sugar form." It got 2 million views in a week, orders exploded. We had lines down the block. I worked 18 hours a day, slept on the bakery couch, and never felt more alive. A month later, a local investor came in. He said he'd been watching my growth online. He offered to partner and expand into new locations. I was terrified. My parents had always said I wasn't smart with money, that I'd ruin anything I touched. But this time, I didn't ask anyone's permission. I signed the deal. That's how 5 Bakery became 5 and Company. Within 3 years, we had 4 stores across the state. We started shipping nationwide. I had a team, a brand, and something that people genuinely loved. I wasn't rich yet, but I was getting there. And for the first time, when I walked past luxury stores, I didn't feel like a window shopper. I felt like I belonged in that world, not because of what I could buy, but because I'd earned my place. 3.5 years after I started 5, I got a phone call that felt like déjà vu. It was from my sister, Emily. I hadn't heard from her in almost 5 years, not since the day of the will reading. Her voice was shaky, almost desperate. "Mom and Dad need help," she said. They're losing the house." I didn't say anything. For a few seconds, all I could hear was my heartbeat and the soft hum of the refrigerator behind me. "They're what?" I finally asked. She sighed. "Dad made some bad investments. Mom's medical bills piled up. They can't afford the mortgage anymore." I remember staring out the bakery window, watching a young girl holding a cupcake, smiling at her mom. Somewhere deep inside, I felt something twist. Not joy, not pity, something in between. "Why are you calling me?" I asked quietly. "Because," she hesitated, "you're doing well now. You could help them." I laughed softly at first, then louder until it hurt. "They left me $5, Emily. Remember?" She didn't respond. I told her I'd think about it, but I already knew what I was going to do. That night, I pulled out my old box of keepsakes, photos, notes, and that same wrinkled $5 bill. The tape was yellowing, but the number was still there. 5. That number had defined my pain, my hunger, my ambition. And now it would define my revenge. The next day, I visited my parents' old town for the first time in years. Their house looked smaller than I remembered. Paint peeling off, lawn overgrown, mailbox rusted. I almost didn't recognize it. When my mother opened the door, her eyes widened like she'd seen a ghost. "Clara," she whispered. I nodded. She looked older, weaker. The woman who once judged everything I did now had hands that trembled when she held the door. My father appeared behind her, thinner, slower, a shadow of his old self. "Why are you here?" he asked, his voice still carrying that edge of pride that never softened. I smiled. "I heard you needed help." We sat in their worn-out living room, surrounded by furniture I once helped polish as a kid. They explained their situation, Dad's failed investments, Mom's medical treatments, overdue bills. The numbers sounded big, but I'd written bigger checks in the past year. At one point, Dad said, "We thought you'd be bitter after the will. But maybe you've grown up." He said it like forgiveness was something he could give me. I looked at him, and for the first time, I didn't feel small. I felt powerful. "I have grown up," I said softly. "More than you know." I told them I'd take care of it. That I'd come back tomorrow with a check to help them start over. My mother's eyes filled with tears. My father's jaw finally unclenched. "Maybe we were too hard on you," he said. "You've proven yourself." I smiled. Maybe I have. That night, I couldn't sleep. Not out of guilt, but because my mind was racing. This was it. The moment every painful year had been building toward. I wasn't going to scream or insult them or rub it in their faces. That wasn't the kind of revenge I wanted. I wanted silence. The kind that echoes. The next morning, I dressed simply, white blouse, black pants, hair tied back. I looked calm, controlled. I drove my silver Tesla, one of the few luxuries I allowed myself, back to their house. They were waiting at the door. Dad even smiled when he saw the envelope in my hand. "You didn't have to," he said. "I know," I replied, "but I wanted to." I handed him the envelope. His hands shook slightly as he opened it. He pulled out the check and stared. At first, his eyes softened, as if he was about to thank me. Then they froze. It was a check for $5. The memo line read, "For old time's sake." Silence. Pure, heavy silence. My mother's mouth opened, but no words came out. My father's face turned red, not with anger, but with realization. "I told you," I said quietly, "I'd take care of it." And then I turned around and walked away. No shouting. No dramatic music. Just the sound of my heels on their cracked front steps. When I got into my car, I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just breathed. Deep, steady, and free. I drove straight to my bakery, the smell of sugar and butter hitting me like comfort. My employees waved, smiling, unaware of the storm I'd just ended. I walked into my office, closed the door, and finally let out a laugh. Not the broken kind this time, the real kind. The kind that comes when you finally realize you've won. Because I had. Not just over them, over who I used to be. Years later, when Five & Company expanded to 10 stores and a national brand reached out to acquire us for millions, I framed that final check too, the $5 one I'd written for my parents. Right beside the one they left me. 2 pieces of paper that told the whole story. People often ask me how I stayed motivated. I just tell them pain is a currency. You can spend it on pity or you can invest it in yourself. I chose the latter. And to this day, whenever someone doubts me, I think back to that day in the lawyer's office, the smirk on my mother's face, the silence from my father, the weight of that $5 bill in my hand. And I smile. Because sometimes, the smallest number can leave the biggest mark.